He was so messy, and he was stubborn. I'm telling you, when he had an idea in his mind, you could not sway him. You could not, you literally, and it could be something that is plain as day, but if he couldn't see it, he couldn't see it. And you would literally have to just sit back and say, okay, you know what, I'll take my hands off and I'll let you see for yourself. He's one of those people, kind of people, he had to see for himself. You can't tell him anything.
It's kind of like when somebody loses a family member like that, it's so real. You hit the pavement and then you're like anchored. It's like makes an anchor out of those who have lost people. And other people who care, of course, they come by, they check on you, partly to lift you up, but also partly to keep anchored, because it's like that becomes the reality that everything else is gauged by. Those people died, that's real, that becomes the anchor. And it's terrible that that's what we're anchoring our lives on instead of something more positive. You know, like a new building, a new organization or something. Those should be our anchors and not the tragedies. I'm Laurel Becton. I've been here for, can I say approximately 35 years? It's been a long time. It's kind of dusty, shooting it off. I like that photo. It's not the best photo of him, but it's thoughtful. When we were little, cowboy movies, it's all about shooting. The gun is the way to solve problems. The good guy comes in, he solves all the problems with his gun, and that's the American way. And then you have the soldier movies and the detective movies and cop movies, and they're all solving the problems with violence. And that's a message that people have been getting forever. I mean, since we had television.
My name is Sekou Becton, and I've been from West Philly just about all my life since I was 3. I remember since the 80s, growing up, it's been pretty much the same. And we would, you know, hear gunshots and hear about the shootings or hear about this person or that one got shot.
Well, my name is Joseph Becton. I've lived in this neighborhood. I think that, I wasn't real cognizant at the time, but I think it was 1955 when we moved here. It's really ugly because the greater society looks at violence that happens here and claims that that's the problem with society. Well, in fact, the greater society has always been violent and continues to be violent, and then turns back and looks at my community and says, you're violent.
It was so rough. It was brutal on me. I'm not gonna lie. So I met David when I was 16. We were both 16. And he was very mature. Cause at that age, I was like, I could go one way or the other. Like, I was really trying to decide, do I wanna be bad or do I wanna be good? Honestly, I really was. So I was starting to like hooky school and stuff and do stuff like that. And he actually was the one who was like, no, you need to go to school. I'm like, oh, well, school is boring. Like, he was like, well, no, that's dumb, go to school. I'm going to school. And when he put it like that, I'm like, wow, he's not encouraging me. He's not trying to hooky school with me. If anything, he's saying, all right, well, you can hooky school because I'm going to school. Whatever you do, I'll see you when I get home from school. And that made me feel so dumb. And I didn't hooky again. I felt so stupid. I'm like, oh my God, he really just made me feel like an idiot. So David was, man, he was an amazing dad. When I say, I tell you, he was so involved with our kids. Like, he was very involved in their football. Our oldest son plays football. He homeschooled our kids. He was just obsessed with his kids. And he was obsessed with me. I was obsessed with him. He was just a good guy. He really was. He was awesome. Awesome dad, awesome husband. I mean, of course we argued here and there, but our arguments, they weren't that bad. Especially toward the older we got. If we disagreed on something, it was just like, all right, well, that's fine. Like, whatever. Like, it wasn't a screaming match. Like, well, okay, we didn't care. Like, the last few years, it was just like, all right, whatever. Moving on. I went to bed. David brought me and the kids some pizza and wings, and the kids had their wings and pizza, and they were in bed, and I was watching, I'll never forget, I was on my phone watching Coming to America, waiting for him to come home. So David was out. He had just gotten this job at a construction site. And he always wanted to be a construction worker. It was like one of his dream jobs. He loves to work with his hands and stuff. And he had gotten a job. He had been there for about a month, and he was just in a good mood. He really was in a good mood that night. And he went out to a bar, and he hadn't been going to bars for a while. He'd been like just buying a bottle of wine and coming home and just drinking at home. But I guess he wanted to go out and be festive, you know, be around people and have fun. And at some point in the night, I fell asleep with the movie playing on my phone. I fell asleep. And then my phone rung. I was in the room was all dark. My phone rung, and I picked it up. It was my brother-in-law, Osai, who is David's older brother. And I'm like, hello? And then I didn't hear anything. And then he answered, and his voice sounded all weird. I never heard Osai's voice sound like that. And he said, David's dead. And I said, what? I just couldn't believe it. And then I was in the dark. So I just I sat up in the bed and I felt around next to me. Because sometimes if David stayed out, he would come in. So I thought, oh no, he got to be confused. And so I'm thinking maybe David's laying next to me asleep. And because it was pitch black in the room. So I jumped up and felt next to me, and he wasn't there. And then I just started screaming. Then I ran down the steps. I don't know where I thought I was going. I just went running. And I ran outside, and I saw Osai. I can't remember if I saw Osai or my father. It was Osai. And I just asked him, was it true? Was it true? And he said, yeah. And I just cried and cried and cried. I feel like I sat on the steps until the sun came up almost. I just sat on the steps and just cried and cried. I don't know if I thought that David was going to pull up to the block, or I don't know what I was sitting out on the porch waiting for. I just didn't want to go in the house. I just sat on those steps until I couldn't keep my head up anymore. And my mom sat on the porch with me, and then eventually she said, let's go in the house.
So a little over 2 years ago, our youngest son was killed, not far from here, in a senseless act of violence. And, you know, that disrupted our whole world and put us down into this deep hole that we're still climbing up out of.
Our whole neighborhood was in grieving because my brother was a good-hearted young man, and apparently he got in an argument in a bar and it ended in him being killed. And everybody agreed it shouldn't have ended in his death. It wasn't a life or death situation.
Community really turned out, you know, for him. This street was crowded. There must have been 100 people a day or two after he was killed. Friends from work, you know, sent special messages, and people from around the city. But in all honesty, I'm still broke up about it now. But I'm trying to stick to those things that I said about not going out and killing other people, because that's just all part of that stupid cycle that goes around and around. And I'm sure there are people who are walking around here right now saying, he's a coward. He's a coward. He let that dude kill his son. He ain't done nothing. He's a coward. He let that dude shoot his other son. He ain't done nothing. He's a coward. So I'm sure there's people walking around right now saying that I am a coward. You know, that I'm not a real man. You know, but I believe that this rhetoric that we live by for real men is not really the direction that the world should go. our culture, if you will, teaches us to hate ourselves. You know, if the society was telling you you were a drug dealer, a murderer, a rapist, and you believe it, guess what you're going to be? There you go. So that self-hatred plays out in all kinds of ways across the thing. So my big thing now is tell everybody, stop hating yourself. Don't kill yourself. The person who looks like you is like you. I mean, I've had the problem myself, walking down the street at night. Here comes somebody coming up the street, I'm walking up in front of me. If they're white, I'd be like, well, he's probably not gonna bother me. If they're black, I'll be like in my back pocket, straighten it out to make sure my knife is in the right position. Self-hatred.
It's always on my mind, and I always try to remind, especially young men and young men of color, that we shouldn't have to be always be rivals to each other. And when we see someone who looks like us, we shouldn't automatically think that they're a threat. So like if another black man asks you like, are you cool? That shouldn't be a threat to you. You should say, yeah, I'm cool. Are you cool? We're good. You know, say it in a loving way. We don't have to be at odds with each other and always suspect potential violence from each other. And I think that would resolve a lot of things, a lot of misunderstanding. I work with families and family group therapy, and at least half of my cases have dealt with community violence and the loss of a loved one. A big part of it is just trying to help the family process what happened, using like an emotional approach to understand how they feel about it. And if they can understand how they feel, they can then identify the behaviors that are associated with that feeling and avoid transferring that onto other situations. Whereas like if my brother was killed, now I'm angry, I feel threatened, I'm hypervigilant, and I may be the next one to be easily triggered and hurt someone else. But if I can identify that feeling and realize the origin of it, I can start to relieve those emotions when I feel like I'm being triggered and avoid continuing the pattern.
I think people have different levels of resiliency. So some people can go through these things and then figure a way to just get over it. And then some people don't. Some people never do. Some people crack and they say, forget it, and they give up and lay down and just, give up on life. General resiliency, just being able to say, all right, I got to keep going because I'm alive, so I can't give up. My family has been affected by violence. I was shot as a teenager, and I'm sure that was traumatic for all my family. I lost my younger brother to murder 2 years ago, and we still all dealing with issues because of that. And yeah, we've been affected by violence, for sure. But like I said, we're resilient and we keep on living and keep on recovering.